There's so much hype on the internet. People calling crazy stuff like bomb, who's this guy, who's that guy. Well, now you guys know who's this guy. What's he capable of, you know?
After a historic win over Tszyu Bakhram, made his place in the boxing world and called out the pound-for-pound best Terence Crawford for his next fight.
Any interest in fighting Jermell Charlo?
Там, я говорю, мне без разницы, с кем драться. Если же не получится договориться, у кого есть пояса, мы будем выбирать из более лучше доступных бойцов. Поэтому будет это Чарло, будет это Кроуфорд, будет это Фундора, Спенс. Не имеет никакого значения. Приоритет это пояса. Если нету поясов, боев за пояса, то можем подраться хоть с кем.
Sean Porter predicted that Tszyu would rely on movement and strategy to overcome his opponent's reach. Advantage Porter noted that Maliev started the fight with a strong jab, but his focus was on how he thought Tszyu would be the one to circle around and use his range to gain an edge despite the reach deficit.
Where did it go wrong for Tim?
You know, the opening bell. I saw Bakhram come out and pop his jab, and he did what I told you guys Tim was going to do. I thought Tim would be the guy moving to his left, circling, and using his range. And I know you see a reach difference or this disadvantage for Tim, but it doesn't matter. I've out-jabbed everyone that I've been in the ring with. Everyone that I've been in the ring with has been taller and longer.
Porter continued by explaining how Murtazaliev's team seemed to approach the fight with a different game plan than what Tszyu's camp had anticipated. According to him, this unexpected strategy from Murtav was a key factor in Tszyu's struggles throughout the fight, he added. I think they came out with a different style than what the Tszyu camp expected, and I think it just started to unravel from there. After securing his victory over Tszyu Bakhram, Maliev wasted no time in calling out other top fighters in the division aiming for unification and more prestigious titles. He was clear in his desire to prove himself as the dominant force at 150 for PBS, and one of the biggest names he set his sights on was Terence Crawford.
Well, my priority is to fight for more titles against Spence, Fundora, or Crawford. But if we cannot make it happen, then we will choose the best option for us, what will give us more opportunities.
Crawford, being a multi-division champion and generally regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters, represented the pinnacle of competition in boxing. Crawford talked about Tszyu's performance during the fight, pointing out a critical flaw in his approach to this kind of strategic insight from Crawford, a world-class boxer known for his adaptability and defense, highlighted the adjustments Tszyu needed to make to survive the onslaught from Bakhram Maliev. The tweet read, "Tim better change up that game plan and start moving his head." Coming in as the fight between Tszyu and Bakhram Maliev developed, Terence Crawford was quick to share his thoughts on social media, offering real-time reactions to what he saw in the ring. Crawford initially tweeted, "Told Yellen to strong for Tim," clearly indicating that he believed Merv's power was too much for Tszyu to handle as Tszyu struggled to stay on his feet. Crawford continued with his legs gone, showing that the Tszyu was losing his ability to stay grounded, a sign of fatigue, and being outclassed when the referee allowed the fight to continue despite the severe punishment the Tszyu was taking. Crawford responded with a lol, giving Tim time is crazy, showing his surprise at the decision to let the fight go on. But as the brutal knockdowns kept coming and the situation became increasingly dangerous for the Tszyu, Crawford's tone shifted to concern for the fighter's well-being, tweeting a straightforward and serious plea to stop the fight at the Cube Royale Resort in Orlando, Florida. The boxing world watched a thrilling undercard for the highly anticipated clash between Tszyu and Bakhram Maliev. The 10-fight event was filled with action and intensity, building up to the main event between the junior middleweight powerhouses. Greg Hackett was discussing the potential for a future fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Maliev, saying that it would be a fantastic matchup for Crawford. Hackett acknowledged Merv's rising reputation, but he emphasized that Crawford works at a higher level in terms of skill and experience. Greg Hackett was reflecting on the chance of a matchup between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Maliev, expressing that it would be an exciting fight for Crawford. Hackett emphasized that Crawford works at an elite level, suggesting that such a fight would showcase his abilities.
That'd be a great fight for Terence Crawford. I mean, he is that level. You know what I mean? And Bakhram, everybody's speaking about Bakhram now because of what he did to Tszyu, but that's what happens in boxing when you take fights.
Hackett explained how, despite being relatively unknown, Murtazaliev's style showed good fundamentals. Hackett noticed that Murtazaliev's powerful jab, right hand, and hook were effective weapons in the ring. His assessment emphasized that even without flashy techniques, a fighter with good fundamentals can make important things happen. He said, "We don't know much about him, but from what I see up and down style, got a great jab, got a great right hand, got a great hook, and that's all you need in boxing, the good basics. If you get good basics, you can make some things happen." Hackett compared Maliev's skills to those of Terence Crawford. He stressed that while Merv's basics were strong, Crawford's skill set was much more dynamic and complicated. Hackett pointed out that Crawford brings a wider array of techniques and elements to his fights than Tszyu, which is why he considered Crawford a far more difficult opponent. He added, "Of course, Terence Crawford isn't Tszyu. Terence Crawford comes with a lot more features than Tszyu." Greg Hackett was analyzing how a fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram might unfold, expressing confidence that Crawford would give Merv major problems. Hackett highlighted Crawford's exceptional jab and his ability to gradually break down opponents over time. He envisioned Crawford using body shots and gradually wearing Murtazaliev down as the fight progressed, predicting that by the 9th or 10th round he could possibly stop Murtazaliev.
So I think he would give Bakhram a world of trouble. Just behind his jab alone, take some time to break him down, stab him to the body, things like that. Work him out till he gets to about the 9th, 10th round and probably get him out.
Hackett acknowledged that while Murtazaliev is a tough and determined fighter, having taken some heavy shots in his previous fight, he didn't think that Murtazaliev could beat Crawford. Hackett felt that Crawford's overall skill set and knowledge would be too much for Murtazaliev to handle in the long run. He added that Bakhram got caught with some shots too, and he felt, "You know what I'm saying, but he stayed determined, and he stayed on the goal, but I don't think Bakhram could beat Terence Crawford." The main event provided Dr. Drama from the opening bell. Bakhram Malev, the reigning IBF junior middleweight champion, entered the ring with an unblemished record of 220, having 16 knockouts. His ability to mix power with relentless combinations had been the hallmark of his rise, and many wondered if Tszyu could handle the pressure that Murtazaliev would bring. Tszyu, a former WBO junior middleweight champion with a record of 24-1.17, was returned to the ring after a heartbreaking loss to the towering Sebastian Fundora in March. That loss, a 12-round split decision, had shaken Tszyu's confidence, and many saw this fight as a must-win for the Australian. Tszyu seeking redemption after a disappointing loss and hoped to re-establish his dominance, while Morsha had the chance to raise his career with a marquee victory.
Tough loss for you, but just what's going through your mind?
Just happened. Like, what did I get hit with? And couldn't regroup, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't go your way, and you just have to bounce back, And
From the outset, Morv was the aggressor, quickly controlling the fight with his powerful combinations. Tszyu struggled to find his rhythm as the Russian champion applied steady pressure. Mortal's punches landed with authority, and Tszyu, who had never met an opponent like him in his 8-year career, found himself overwhelmed in the second round. The fight took a dramatic turn. He knocked Tszyu down 3 times, and the Australian barely could hear the bell. The first knockdown came within the opening minute of the round as the male's relentless attack caught Tszyu off guard. Eric Lubin reflected on the potential matchup between himself and Tszyu, noting that they had plans in place if Tszyu had won the fight. However, after Tszyu's loss to Bakhram, Lubin admitted that things had to change. He expressed that now he would have to shift his focus and try to secure a fight with Malev instead, as the Russian champion has become the next target after his victory.
I mean, he was a champion already, so if Tszyu would have beat him, then me and Tszyu, we already got something planned or whatever. But now we got to move on. We got to move on and go ahead and try to get this Russian dude in.
I mean, he was a winner already, so if Tszyu would have beat him, then me and Tszyu already have something planned or whatever. But now we got to move on. We got to move on and go ahead and try to get this Russian dude in there. The second knockdown came at the halfway point with Malev, landing a brutal right hand that sent Tszyu crashing to the canvas. The third knockdown came in the final seconds of the round, leaving Tszyu battered and dazed. As Tszyu fought to make it back to his corner, the crowd wondered if the fight would continue. Tszyu, reflecting on his performance after the fight, admitted that he was still looking for answers after his previous loss to Sebastian Fundora. Tszyu was positive going into the fight with Malev, but things did not progress the way he had planned. He acknowledged that the result was different from what he had expected despite feeling physically prepared and confident going into the bout. He said, "I was hopeful after the Fonder fight, but I got to find more answers with this one. This didn't go according to plan. It was a little bit different." The loss was a crushing blow for Tszyu, who came into the fight. He had been looking to rebuild his image after the loss to Fonder, a fight in which he had been thoroughly outboxed by the taller, longer fighter. Tszyu had expressed his frustration after that defeat, admitting that he had struggled to deal with Fur's height, reach, and high volume of punches. His teammates knew the moral fight would be important to his career, but the outcome was worse than expected. Tszyu opened up about how strong he felt during the fight preparation, but accepted that Morev was the better boxer on the night. He credited Mev for the win and expressed an attitude of learning from the loss, stressing the importance of moving forward and improving after tough experiences in the ring. "I felt amazing. I'll be honest with you. I felt amazing. I had a great prep, so he got me, man, and he was the better man on this night. and we live and we learn between rounds. The ringside doctor checked on the Tszyu, ensuring he was fit to continue. Though he was allowed to continue, the damage had already been done. Morel's power had sapped Tszyu's energy and confidence. Still, the Australian showed heart, refusing to give up as he started the third round. However, it didn't take long for Murtazaliev to resume his assault. Tszyu found himself on the canvas again early in the third round, and the referee warned him that one more knockdown would force him to stop the fight. But Tszyu's corner, realizing the extent of the punishment their fighter had endured, decided not to wait for the inevitable. Keith Thurman was reflecting on the fight, emphasizing how Merrill's victory over Tszyu validated the confidence his camp had going into the bout. Thurman shared that he was confident from the time he signed the contract, stating that he didn't see anything unique or particularly challenging in Tszyu's style. He referenced Merrill's similar mindset leading up to the fight, where both Murtazaliev and his trainer expressed their opinion that Tszyu's style was predictable and tailor-made for Murtazaliev.
I mean, look what the left hook did, man. You know, I was obviously confident when I signed the contract. I said there's nothing special in what Tszyu brings to the table. Earlier this week, because I was on the analytical side this evening, earlier this week, I got to interview all the fighters, and, you know, Bakhram clearly said that him and his trainer said that there's nothing special about Tszyu, and that Tszyu is just cookie cutter made for Bakhram. And not only were they able to say that, but they
Thurman continued by analyzing Tszyu's mindset and approach to the fight, saying that Tszyu may have been too confident in his abilities without having a clear and adaptable strategy. He emphasized that while self-belief and skill are important, a fighter needs more than just repetition to win at the highest level. Thurman pointed out that making subtle adjustments during the fight is important, and Tszyu's failure to do so contributed to his downfall. He added, "I think Tszyu, in the way that I thought he was handling my fight, was overly confident. You know, believing in himself. You know, it's fine to have skills. It's fine to have a will, but you have to have a plan. You need to be able to make subtle ring changes rather than repeating one thing." Thurman acknowledged that after 3 knockdowns there was no real path to victory without a knockout. However, Thurman emphasized Tszyu's incredible determination and warrior-like spirit despite the devastating blows, particularly a left hook that repeatedly landed on Tszyu's temple, causing visible damage and shaking him as he fell. Tszyu continued to rise.
Obviously, the scorecards would never look good, so obviously after that 3 knockdowns, there's no way he was winning tonight without a knockout. And after the 4th knockdown, and you know, but let's be real, the way he got up, the way he kept getting up.
Yeah, a lot of grit.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you know boxing and you know that how that left hook was hitting right on the temple, and the way Tszyu went down sideways, you can almost see him shaking as he's on the ground. It's almost like we can feel the reverb from the punch as a...
Thurman praised Tszyu's resilience, saying that despite his body telling him to shut down, Tszyu continued to fight even on unsteady legs before his corner threw in the towel. Tszyu tried to fire an overhand right. Thurman underscored that Tszyu's toughness and fighting spirit would be remembered as an example of real grit, making him stand out as one of the rare fighters with that level of heart.
The fact that he's consuming that type of reverb, everything in his body is telling his body to shut down, and he stood back up. And then as the last fight, right before his coaches threw in the towel, he was on Bambi legs. He couldn't stand up right, but he still had the audacity to try to come to the overhand right. I mean, there just will not be, throughout history, there will not be many type of warriors like
Murtazaliev, who had previously won the vacant title with an 11th round TKO over Jack K, was determined to solidify his standing in the division. The fight represented a chance to redeem himself after losing his WBO junior middleweight title to Sebastian Fonder earlier in the year. A win would have put him back in the mix for future title opportunities, possibly setting up unification bouts. Thurman was commenting on his pre-fight skepticism about Tszyu, explaining that he wasn't sure Tszyu was as intimidating or dangerous as he was often portrayed. He pointed out that this year, with Tszyu coming to the US to face top-tier competition, has proven that stepping up to a higher level of opposition can reveal a fighter's weaknesses. He said, "I told you guys I'm not sure if he's that scary. I'm not sure if he's that dangerous, and I think, I think this year of him coming over here and trying to fight the best shows that when you go from a little pool to a big pool you're running into some big fish." Malev began the fight with an undefeated record of 22-0 and 16 KOs, is known for his power and aggressive style of Tszyu with a 24-1 record and 17 KOs, was a more technical fighter known for his precision and planned approach. Both athletes had a high knockout rate, but Murtazaliev's power stood out after the fight. A clearly emotional Tszyu addressed the media, flanked by his promoter Matt Rose and his manager Glenn Jennings. Tszyu's mother and his Hall of Fame father Costa were also in attendance, giving support during what was certainly one of the lowest points of his career. Tim, holding an ice pack in his hand, was unable to offer much in the way of an excuse for his performance. When asked how he was feeling, he simply replied that it just happened twice more. He was asked about the fight, and both times he replied, "I can't remember," suggesting that the damage from Mertz's punches had left him disoriented. Main event commentator Ben Dam called the result unthinkable and described the fight as a monstrous upset. Maleev, who had entered the ring with a 20-0 record, was still considered the underdog against the more recognizable Tszyu. Caleb Plant stated that while the result may not have been expected, this is the nature of boxing. Plant recognized that the sport is full of unpredictability, where even the best fighters can experience both highs and lows throughout their careers. His statement reflected the reality that surprises are usual in boxing and no result is guaranteed. He said, "Naughty XP, Ed, but you know that's boxing. And that comes with a lot of highs and lows." According to Kompu Box's Ben Chan's breakdown, Morsel threw 18 more punches than Tszyu in the opening round, and while Tszyu was slightly more accurate, landing 36% of his punches, Mortal's constant pressure proved too much in the second round. Maleev delivered 30 punches, knocking Tszyu down 3 times and forcing him into survival mode. Caleb Plant was reflecting on the timing of the knockout, noting that while he expected a tough fight between the two, he didn't think it to come as quickly or as early as it did. Plant acknowledged the skills of both fighters, knowing that it was always going to be a challenging matchup, but the speed of the finish surprised him.
Right, Caleb? I don't think anybody gave Murtazaliev a win by knockout.
I mean, maybe not that fast and that early, so, yeah. But both are great fighters, so I knew it.
Andre Berto questioned the decision-making behind putting Tszyu against a tough undefeated fighter like Moore for his comeback fight. Berto implied that this was a poor move for Tszyu, especially coming off a previous loss. His tone suggested frustration with the handling of Tszyu's career, especially the difficulty of the matchup. Berto tweeted, "Who in the hell's bright idea was it to match Tim Tszyu with this big-ass undefeated Russian pitbull for a comeback fight after a loss? Shaking my head now, that was just dumb." Meanwhile, Stephen Edwards took a more critical stance on Tszyu's reputation and future chances. Edwards didn't focus on the loss itself, but rather on how the defeat might affect Tszyu's standing in the eyes of future OPP opponents. He pointed out that when a fighter like Tszyu brands himself as a destructive fighter and calls himself the Soul Taker, a loss like this makes it difficult to keep that image. Edwards tweeted, "Tim Tszyu's job is in trouble now, and it's not the loss. If you're a man, you can come back from a loss now. No opponent will respect him when you pride yourself on being a damaging fighter. He calls himself the Soul Taker. Few fighters of his ilk can handle that." As the dust settles on this intense fight, the real question from fans and analysts alike is, where does Tim Tszyu go from here with such a crushing defeat and questions surrounding his future? Can he rise again to prove his critics wrong? Or has this fight marked a turning point in his career that will be hard to come back from? If you've liked this breakdown and want to stay updated with all the latest boxing news, predictions, and analysis, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on alerts. Drop a comment below and let us know your ideas. What's next for Tim Tszyu?